I've worked out why Magneto's a bad guy. Look at this. This is a beer. This is the helmet. It's very difficult to drink a beer in the helmet. It's enough to make anybody a bad guy. Okay, so since Comic-Con, and since I started doing ramblings about the trailers, a few of my friends have started asking me for comic advice. Which ones should they read to tie in with the films and just in general? This is generally met with exactly the same outcome every time. A nervous tick in my face, my brain oozing out my ears, and then them being very confused by the stream of white noise that flies out of my mouth as I go through thousands of different storylines. So what I thought I've done, well, this is by the request of one of them, is to look at my comic collection, which is quite a large collection of graphic novels and trades, and pick out some of the key ones just in general. And these three piles here are the short list. This is the highlights, as you will, and I'm going to go through some of these and give a bit of opinion on various ones, various ones of them. Yeah, I'm going to keep with my beer and keep recording. One take, none of this stopping bullshit. So, we'll start with the San Diego Comic-Con announcements, and we'll start with the ones that I have no physical comics for. Deadpool was announced and shown a trailer of. I haven't done a rambling on that one yet, but it looks like a good trailer. I don't have any physical Deadpool books, but one that I would recommend is the Deadpool Illustrated series of books. Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, and then there's a couple of others where he goes off into other universes, into other books, and just kills archetypal characters, and then I think that ends up in Deadpool kills Deadpool. I can't remember the exact chronology of the Illustrated series, but that's my recommendation for there, mainly because that's Deadpool at his most Deadpool, as it were. Suicide Squad, you're on your own. I've got nothing for them. I've seen little bits here and there, but it's not a group I've ever been interested in. I've always been more of a Marvel than DC. I read both, but Marvel's always been my favourite. Marvel have got the heroes, DC have got the villains. If they could come together and smack them into one thing, that would be perfect. So that's that one. X-Men Apocalypse was the other one that was announced, and I have a recommendation tied into that one. And that is, it's not tied in, it won't be linked into the story, because I have no idea what they're doing with that story. I don't know why they've made Apocalypse look like Ivan Ooze from the fucking Power Rangers movie, but they have. They've changed all his horsemen, so it's 4 horsemen, and now Magneto, Psylocke, Storm, and Archangel. Archangel, I buy. Archangel is a good one. But anyway, this is my recommendation regarding that. So, Age of Apocalypse. This is very thick, part 1 of 4. So it's a beastly old storyline, and this is an Elseworlds series. So basically, what happens in here is that Xavier is killed, and that sets off an alternate timeline where the X-Men don't get formed in the same way. Eventually Magneto forms them, and that's an entire thing. But Apocalypse takes over the world, well, takes over America at the minimum, and wipes out quite a lot of the rest of the world, and Apocalypse is in charge. And this just sees some of your heroes in completely different roles, so none of the main Marvel heroes exist or were wiped out early in the war against Apocalypse. Cyclops and Havoc are minions of Apocalypse. Beast takes the role of Mr. Sinister doing genetic experiments and is a bit of an evil bastard, to be fair. And it's a really well written book. All boils back down to eventually undoing what caused Age of Apocalypse to happen, but it's well worth the read to get to that point. Okay, and so much for single take, because my audio fucked up there, so I'm having to re-record quite a lot of this. We've gone through X-Men Apocalypse. The next one on the list is Marvel Civil War. So there, I'm just going to say it, the Civil War book. The film is not going to be like this book. This book is a separate storyline because this book has access to all of the characters within the Marvel licenses. The film will only have access to a small portion of them, and will try and rewrite certain of the key elements of this book. However, the key topic, the main thread of something happens that causes superheroes to have to register themselves and divulge their identity, will cause a split between the Avengers. And that's what this is about. It's a very well written out story. It led to a entire 4 years of weirdness in the Marvel Universe where Captain America was technically breaking the law the entire time and had his own set of Avengers, and the law-abiding Avengers were another group of Avengers. And you don't need to know that. Just read that. It'll give you an insight into the film when it comes out. The next one is Batman vs Superman. So I did my review of that trailer, and there's some stuff in there that comes back out of the comic. So just in general, there's 3 I've got to recommend in this one. Just in general, just because everybody who watches the Batman film should really read Batman Year One. I think you can actually watch it now. I think they just turned it into an animated short. So, Batman Year One, it's just the origins of Jim Gordon and Batman done really well. However, the 2 that are of importance. The first one is Batman Dark Knight Returns. So in here is a fight between... Batman in this one has retired, and it's 30-40 years down the line, and he comes out of retirement for reasons, and towards the end there is a fight between Batman and Superman, and this is the comic where Batfleck's big metal Superman fighting costume is coming from. They'll be taking a lot of notes from this. It definitely won't be the same storyline because this is all kinds of wrong. Very, very well written, but it's all kinds of altered from the origins. But as we saw in the trailer, there's the suit of a Robin, which we're assuming it's Jason Todd's costume. And if you want to know about Jason Todd, then you've got to read Batman: Death in the Family, because this is the comic where Jason Todd dies, and it all will play in. So what I'm thinking in the Batman vs Superman is that the Death in the Family thing will have happened, and that will have caused Batman to retire, a la Dark Knight Returns, and then you've got the back end of Dark Knight Returns where Batman and Superman fight for reasons. It's been a while since I've read Dark Knight Returns, so I can't remember the exact reason why those 2 are kicking off, but they are. But that's Batman vs Superman. I definitely recommend all 3 of them. And the last film-based one I've got a recommendation for is one that hasn't really been publicised all that much yet, but it's all in the rumour. The next Wolverine film. So there is a new Wolverine film coming along the lines, and it'll be Hugh Jackman's last Wolverine film. And the current theories and rumours are that it will be based on this one, which is Wolverine Old Man Logan. So Old Man Logan is again another Elseworlds storyline where all of the one day all of the villains work together for once. All of the heroes are dead, or the majority of them are dead, because there were just so many more villains and they just outnumbered them and wiped them out. The country, the United States of America, has been split up between the various villains and the Hulk. The Hulk turned bad and basically became a redneck and started banging She-Hulk and had an entire Hulk family. The only heroes of note that are still around are Wolverine, who's retired, gone to a farm, refuses to fight anymore, doesn't use his claws, and Hawkeye, who comes along and asks him to help him with a business transaction, help drive him across country, because Hawkeye is now blind. It happens. And then the entire story is about that trip and what happens going on from that. It's an interesting take on Wolverine because it's Wolverine avoiding fighting. So he will do anything. He does a lot to avoid actually getting into a fight. And then the ending is gruesome and right for the character. So that's definitely worth reading, particularly if the next Wolverine film is going to be based on it. Obviously they're going to have to change a few characters. Hawkeye will probably become Cyclops. The Hulk character will probably become Beast, or likewise. Okay, so now for some recommendations. With these few recommendations are just very good stories, but they have a bit of continuity to them, so they actually feed into each other. So I'm doing these in order. These again are Marvel, because I'm more of a Marvel reader than a DC reader. I just know the Marvel universe a little bit better. It's not because of the films. The films are. DC can't make good films. Doesn't mean they can't write good books. I've just always read Marvel. So, where it starts is Avengers Disassembled. Now, this is an interesting storyline. A load of stuff goes on that leads to the Avengers disbanding. Mystery as to what's causing it. Certain characters are going a bit mental. Certain key characters die in this storyline, only to be revived 2 or 3 books later. So they spend, in comic continuity, in the release schedule, that was a couple of years that those characters were dead, and then all of a sudden come back. But big things happen in this storyline. Revolves quite a lot around Vision and Scarlet Witch, which will tie back into the Age of Ultron film. So that's interesting, and like I said, it continues on into the next book in the pile, which is House of M. I don't believe we'll ever get to this in the film universe because it revolves too much around mutants, which is a shame because it's a very good story. So what happens in this is in the comics, it hasn't been shown in the films yet, in the comics, Scarlet Witch has reality-altering abilities. So, as well as being able to do the hex things that she was doing in the film, she can literally rewrite reality. She is one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe because of that. All the reality alterers are. In House of M, reality has been altered. Reality has been altered by Scarlet Witch in order to give everyone exactly what they want. So it gives them their perfect peaceful existence. Captain America is an old man because he never got turned into Captain America. Spider-Man is married with kids. Somewhere along the line, I can't remember which character it is, one of the characters realises that this isn't the world that should be, and then starts getting together all the other heroes, giving them the information of this is the world that should be, and then at the end of it, going and dealing with it. Why it's called House of M is because it wasn't... in this storyline, the Maximoff family, the Magneto family, are in charge. So it's literally the House of M is the ruling family. But nobody's rallying against it because it's just what wanted to be. Why this is an important storyline is because of the ending and what it does to the mutants. So, going into this, there are millions and millions of mutants. The mutant population has boomed massively because it would, because it's genetic. And at the end of House of M, something happens that results in a mere few hundred mutants remaining on the planet. So that's really important. The next part of the storyline, so from there you go into two that go side by side. So the first we've already talked about is Civil War. So Civil War, that later on leads into Civil War in a roundabout way, but at the same time you have a group called the Illuminati. Yes, not that Illuminati. Basically the head honchos of the various groups, Black Bolt, in various... which incarnation would it be? Black Bolt, Namor, Captain Fantastic, Doctor Strange... oh, who's the missing one? But basically the big hitters get together and decide... Iron Man. Get together and decide on things, decisions that have to be made, whether they're good or bad. That's just what has to be done. And after Hulk goes on a rampage, this group decide that what has to be done, the only way to deal with the Hulk at this point, is to send him off planet. So, why that ties into Civil War is because that's why Hulk is not about in Civil War, because he's off planet at this point. So this book is called Planet Hulk because, yeah, they fire him off planet intending him to go to a nice peaceful planet with just animals and lush forestry, and it goes wrong. Doesn't it always? And he ends up on a war world of sorts and ends up fighting in basically Colosseum battles, and eventually becomes free, and then leads a rebellion against the leader, and eventually becomes the leader of Planet Hulk. And all is well, all is good, until the very end. And the ship that he came on, which is still around, it just crash landed, nothing wrong with it, explodes. And I won't go into detail about what that explosion leads to, other than it makes Hulk very, very, very angry at the Illuminati. Which leads into World War Hulk. This is Hulk returning back to Earth after being sent to Planet Hulk. He's not happy. I don't think I need to say more than that. This is what happens when Hulk is not happy at the heroes of the Earth. And this is what he does to them. And it's great. It's exactly what you expect from a Hulk book. And an ongoing thread through all of these, if you're careful and look for it, is a little story thread to the final book in this pile of Secret Invasion. Again, this is not a book I think we'll see turned into a film. In fact, the Planet Hulks and World War Hulk, I don't think we'll get them as films. Not for quite some time. Not unless Universal Pictures gives up their rights to distribution. Sound cut out again then. So Secret Invasion is the Skrulls. They are a shape-shifting alien race. They are part of the Fantastic Four universe, which is why I don't think we'll ever see them. And it basically, what happened was, during a different series called Annihilation, the Skrull homeworld was destroyed. Now, for a combination of religious and just comic logic reasons, they have decided that they are entitled to the Earth as a replacement homeworld. So in order to make that happen, they decide to infiltrate the superhero circles in order to make sure that they don't stand in their way, and using their shape-shifting abilities and their technology to clone the abilities of the various superheroes. They basically do that. They infiltrate all of the main groups: Hammer, Shield. Actually, I'm not sure Hammer's about at that point. Shield, Sword, the Avengers, the Defenders, all of X-Men, all of the groups. And this story revolves around that invasion coming to light. And yeah, it's all tied into those previous books, so you'll see bits of it in those previous books, and it won't make much sense in those books, but it will when it comes to this. One of the reasons that I've just remembered this book might be interesting to people who watch the films and the TV series is, this is the book where Earthquake, or Daisy Johnson, was not created, but brought to the forefront, because she is working with Nick Fury as one of the few people who know what's going on and defending. Now, Daisy Johnson is in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Daisy Johnson is Skye. That's the character Skye has just become. She's an earthquake-powered meta-human. In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., she's an Inhuman. In Secret Invasion, she's a mutant. I think you can gloss over the fact that those two were pretty much the same thing. And it's just cool watching the heroes fight against each other because they have no idea who they can trust and who they can't. It's just interesting. And as a series of books, that just works out really well. It continues on beyond that, but I haven't read much beyond that, and that's what I'd say as a starter anyway. So now I'm going to go into things that are a bit more standalone, don't really need you to follow a universe, just good stories in general. First one, Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. The original, not the ongoing storyline at the minute. There'll be another one soon. They're currently using that to semi-reboot their universe. This one is interesting because it's one of the bigger battles between good versus evil, villains versus heroes, across multiple groups and stories. It's also the one where the black suit, the Spidey black suit, is originated. It's in this story that he acquires the black suit, which then turns out to be a symbiote, and then turns into Venom, and well, wherever that goes. Considering Spider-Man is now back in the Marvel universe, I think this might be interesting to in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sorry, it might be interesting to read this, because I think they may bring the Venom symbiote back somewhere along the line in order to bring Venom as a hero back in, because in the current continuity he's a hero and he's actually out in space with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Next standalone one, which is one that I'm not sure was really needed, but it was written well, so I'll forgive them for it, and that's Wolverine Origins, or Origin. It's very different from that game that was fun, but nothing to do with this. Wolverine Origin is basically, Wolverine's origins. Up until this point, it was all lost in his deep memory loss that he had. It was the memory of where he came from, his early years, never existed. And at some point they decided they had to sit down and write the Wolverine origins. They had to create it. I think it was more that they had to create it before the movies did it for them, is the thing, because this was 2006, I think. Let's quickly check. It doesn't actually say. Well, it's in here somewhere, but that text is far too small for me to read right now. Anyway, it was just before Wolverine was put into the films. So because they didn't want the films writing Wolverine's origins, they wrote it for them. Doesn't add much to the character, but it's interesting stuff to know, and it's a very well written book. So it answers a few questions, but they're questions that weren't really asked until there were answers given for them. Next one, just because of its artwork and its story, Batman Arkham Asylum. It's one of the best drawn. Grant Morrison's writing is incredible. Grant Morrison's writing. The artwork is great. Some of this stuff bled into the Arkham Asylum games. In the original Arkham Asylum game, I'm not calling this a spoiler because it's bloody ancient, that game now. When you're sneaking around and find all those Amadeus Arkham mysteries, all the history of madness and his spiral into lunacy, that's covered in here as well. But I would definitely recommend that book. It's just one that's well worth a read and completely outside of continuity, so it doesn't matter to anybody if you're going to follow Marvel or not. DC or not. Next on the list we have this one, just because of its sheer hilarity. It's DC versus Marvel Comics. Now everybody who talks about comics has had that. Who would win in a fight between a DC character and a Marvel character? This happened, and it proved that who will win in a fight between X and X? Basically no one. They knock each other out, there's no ending of the fights. There's a bit of a cop-out in this, so it evens up. There's some interesting bits in here, so some of the characters that are put up against each other are the obvious ones: Superman versus Hulk, Storm versus Wonder Woman, Flash versus Quicksilver. Now, the Storm versus Wonder Woman one is my personal favourite because the fight is just a testament to DC arrogance. It had to be written deliberately as a testament to DC arrogance, because Wonder Woman acquires Thor's hammer. He's able to lift it and is able to get the abilities of Thor. She's then put in a fight against Storm and puts down the hammer, because it wouldn't be fair to fight with that power. They should fight on an even playing field, and then Storm kicks her ass. That says it all for me. There was a couple of these, and then a couple of other crossovers, DC Marvel crossovers. They're not as well known as they should be. And then there was the Amalgam comics. The Amalgams I haven't got any of yet, but they're on my to-buy list because they're just great. The Amalgam series of comics were a universe where the DC and Marvel heroes got merged into each other. So Batman and Wolverine were merged and became Darkclaw. Joker and Sabretooth were merged as their rival villain. I think he became the hyena or the jackal, something like that. Just the combinations. Green Lantern and Iron Man became the Green Knight or something like that. Anyway, that's going off the point. DC versus Marvel, well worth a read. Just for shits and giggles. This one, Batman Batman Red Sun? Superman Red Sun. This is basically a what-if story, an Elseworld story of what if Superman didn't land in Kansas? What if Superman instead landed in communist Russia? And it's one of the better written stories. It's actually... it doesn't go the way you think it'd go. It's just really good. Artwork again. Really solid artwork, really well written story. And a nice distraction from normal storylines, because obviously it's completely standalone, completely separate. I think one of my favourite Superman ones. There's another one in this list that's up there as well, but that's something else. Next is Batman. Batman Hush. This is my favourite Batman story to date, because it just uses all of the Batman villains, and there's so many twists and turns in this story that it'll keep, if you don't get lucky and guess it early on, it will keep you guessing right till the very end as to who's responsible for getting all of the villains together in the way that they are. It even has, halfway through for some reason, Batman Superman fight, because it does, because comics is all I can say. Very well written, very well drawn, very worth a read. Last DC one is Superman, in fact All-Star Superman, volumes 1 and 2. Basically, this is a perfect imagining of Superman and what would happen if Superman was dying. Not dying immediately, but dying slowly, knows he's going to be dead within X amount of time. What would he do? And it's just a nice condensed package of Superman being Superman, doing exactly what you imagine him to do, and it's really well written. It's the All-Star Superman. Was supposed to be start of a series of All-Star comics that did something similar to this, brought them back down to their prime. It never actually took off as a range, but this one is good. Cutting back to Marvel quickly, a lot of people disagree with me on this, but Fear itself is a recent Marvel storyline where basically some of the secrets of Asgard are basically released, and bunch of hammers very similar to Thor's appear that give certain people abilities and powers rivaling Thor. Not all of them are good guys. In fact, the majority of them are bad guys. And then a war against Odin. And again, very well written, very interesting story. Loki's a very pivotal character in this for some reason, and on top of that, there's a final battle scene where all of the Avengers are wearing armour and weapons created by the weaponsmiths that created Mjolnir, which is just a wonderful, wonderful panel. And yeah, wrong way around. Worth a check out. And to wrap it up, because no list would be complete without these two, I've only got one of them with me, but no list of comics and graphics novels would be complete without these two books. The first is 300. just the artwork in that book is beautiful, and it's just incredible to read and look through. It's worth reading and then watching the film, because then you see just how close some of the scenes in the film came to the book. They were meticulous when they made that film. They weren't quite so meticulous when they made Watchmen, but there are reasons for that. The story in Watchmen, the comic, would not have worked in the cinematic universe. There's a side plot in this one to do with a pirate ship and a comic and all kinds of craziness. This, however, is well worth a read, and again, beautiful artwork, beautiful story, a lot less giant blue penis, which is always a selling point. Definitely worth getting, and that's about it. I do have a lot more. I could go on forever just going through all the comics that are worth reading, but I was trying to condense it. This is probably still going to be half an hour, but they're what I consider must reads. And on that, any questions about any of them? You want me to go into more detail on any of the stories? Mention it in the comic. Mention it in the comics. Yeah, mention it in the comics. I'll read the comics and then do something about that. Mention it in the comments. Put it in the comments below, and I will look at doing more detail on them. If there's any specific character you want recommendations on, I can look into that and mention that below, and I will pick out, see if I've got anything in my collection or just in general that I know of. And with that, I'm going to stop talking, because now I've got to edit all these clips together to try and make the sound play nicely. Wait. How did Rorschach put up with this? I can't see shit.